a key message, I can take it already now, is that it's really a pity to have these white spots on a map, because I think that sort of really hampers what we can learn from today's knowledge. And the knowledge, the data are there, but it's just not accessible to such a project for different reasons. In some cases it's similar to Germany. Italy is also split up by this region, and that's we didn't have contact networks towards, and we also know from some our contact network that it's a lot of work to get these data from these regional offices in Eastern Europe. Has since the sort of recent development. It used to be easier to say it like that, to get data from these countries in the past. Now there seems to be a more economic consideration involved, meaning that you have to pay for the data. And I think one of my key principles is that I never pay for data, otherwise that really would trigger a bad it's a bad message to communicate. I think data should be for free, because it's for research for a common good. So we managed to get a little bit of data from Eastern Europe, very limited in the Southern Europe, and the Central, Northern and Western Europe is well covered. And the
data is there, you feel? It's just getting on a bit too much of a human resource or cost.
It's cost or non-willingness to share. So it's it's like three main causes for this. And I think for policymakers, and this has to be, we have a bottom-up approach to get the data by contacting first the scientists. They go to their national agency. If possible, we can contact the national agency directly, but if they don't want to share data, they are allowed to engage in the result of the outcome of the analysis. Then it's very little we can do as scientists. Then it has to be a top-down approach instead.
And so the next project that comes along would have to go through exactly the same process.
Exactly, because now we managed to do it to 2004. And I was recently at a conference in Barcelona looking at droughts and the climate drivers for droughts predictions. And it really came across that when I looked at the results they presented, there seems to be a lot that had happened in the last 10 years. So already now our data set is a little bit outdated, and I would love to have data up to present. But that's again a major effort. And when you see where the climate in terms of water resources in Europe, there's a prediction for a drier south, a wetter north, a drier east. And if you look down at the drier south and east, that's where we don't manage to get the data. So in terms, that means also the model improvements would really need data from those areas as a feedback to the model developers, because you need to know how well your model is doing in these regions, which I do think is very sensitive to climate change. So this is one of my key messages, that in order for science to advance, in order for us to advance in the impact of climate change on water resources, there needs to be a larger willingness and commitment, because I think the policymakers, they need information about what's likely going to happen in their region in terms of becoming drier, wetter, more extreme. And there is such a clear link about sharing data then.
So in some ways, if those holding the budgets fund 10 projects on water, there's a percentage of each project they're paying for the same time, again and again and again, which is to gather that data.
Yeah, so. And some of our colleagues in Eastern Europe could they even have to pay for data themselves from their own country, which I think is ridiculous.